You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All righty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and I am joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. Alex, unfortunately, doing a little bit of fun stuff, traveling, not going to be able to make it with us tonight. But, Kevin, how we doing?
I'm doing good, man. Joke's on Alex for not being able to make this. I don't care what he's doing. It's not as cool as doing this right now, so poo-poo on him. But, no, I'm good. We got a little bit of sports, football news today, so some of it bad and some of it kind of interesting. So it is what it is, but it's better than nothing, right? We've been craving for news. It's been so dry the last 3 weeks or so that anything is just going to be consumed by the masses. So that's what we got here today. Got a great show and stuff for you. Going to break down the Packers and see how the Cheeseheads are going to fare with and or without Aaron Rodgers, depending on what your belief is. But I'm pumped for it, man. I'm ready to do it.
Absolutely. And guys, we are joined by a very special guest tonight. We got Robert from TheDynasty411 joining us. How you doing tonight?
Oh, fantastic. It's a Tuesday evening, almost midnight. I mean, and it's fantasy football. There's always times for fantasy football.
You're not kidding. Always time for fantasy football. That should be a logo. Somebody put that on a T-shirt. I like it. But Kevin already said it. We've got a great show. We're going to talk Green Bay Packers. We are going to talk running back rankings, which anybody following any news today knows that got drastically changed up quick, fast, and in a hurry with some of the news breaking earlier today with Cam Akers. Looks like he's gonna miss the season. A torn Achilles is the news coming out there. A lot of things going on in the Twitter sphere and on the socials about that. But let's go ahead and before we kind of get into some of the news and all of that, we're gonna kick this thing off. Every time we have a guest on, we do a little interview. And so, Robert, one of the things that we ask everybody when they come on here is, how did you get your start in fantasy football?
Great question. I actually got started with my father-in-law. He had asked me, this is probably about 5 years ago, he had said, hey, I got this fantasy league, you want to join in? I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And little did I know I was going to be sucked into a whirlwind of fantasy football, maybe. I got deeper and deeper into just wanting to know more, and then it just like exploded, and now I just get to talk about fantasy football, got the podcast, and yeah, I just enjoy fantasy football, man. I don't know what it is. It's an addiction.
It absolutely is. I've been known to have an addictive personality, so this just fits right into my wheelhouse. But you're absolutely right. Between the drafting and the analyzing and the rankings and the trades, right? The trades, the good and the bad. We blew up about a crappy one that went through in one of our leagues today, but that is what it is. But kind of getting into it, and now that you're in and doing the podcast and everything else, what is something about your show and your podcast that really kind of sets itself apart that would help gravitate listeners to come check it out and come see what you're all about?
So I mean, not poo-pooing on any other podcasts out there, because I think there's good ones out there, but what sets us apart from everybody else is we give you in-depth information on what we're doing with our dynasty teams, because we could tell you, hey, go draft this guy, go get this guy, but we put our words to our work. We're doing the exact same thing that we're telling you to go do. And I think that's what sets us apart. We're doing what we're saying we're doing. We're not going to lead you astray. We're going to do what we're doing. And we know where we're going, and that's titles, baby.
There you go. Love it. Yeah, Kevin and I actually are playing in, I think, 3 different leagues with you on the on some of those Dynasty 411 kind of listener leagues and invite leagues. And, you and your guys' crew definitely know what you're doing, and it shows by how you guys kind of work your way through some of that there. But you're kind of changing gears there a little bit on that. A lot of times we talk about who's your favorite guy out there right now, but kind of looking back on a dynasty perspective here, and you've been playing fantasy for a little bit there. I'm curious to know, who your favorite player that you've ever had on one of your fantasy rosters is?
Man, I've had a couple good ones that have come in like as a trade right before the season starts. Man, my favorite player. I probably have to say Lamar Jackson. It was his right before his second season. Everybody was like, I'm not sure if he's going to be good, and I traded for him. And little did I know was he going to have the MVP season that he did, and he blew up. And that was just awesome because I was like, man, do I start him? Do I not? And I started him, and I was like, oh my gosh, look at him, he's blowing up. I'm like, yes, man, he's probably one of my favorite. That'd probably be my favorite moment of fantasy football. And then okay. And then last season, real quick, I had gotten a trade offer. I had drafted Cam Akers, got a trade offer for Aaron Rodgers. They wanted to send me Aaron Rodgers for Cam Akers, and I took the trade. And little did we know Cam Akers wasn't going to do a whole lot, and Aaron Rodgers has this unbelievable season. So every once in a while, I just get those really good ones,
Love it.
Heck yeah. And that takes some stones, right? Like you're trading, a young, kind of unproven running back, which are hard to come by at times for, it is a proven commodity, and especially on the format, you need those quarterbacks too. But, it takes stones to pull off a trade like that, right? When you're giving away the younger asset. And kudos to you, because there's a lot of times I look at those, I'm like, I'm just going to take my chances.
It's hard, man, sometimes. And these were super flex leagues. It's a lot of my leagues I play in are super flex, just to throw it out there. If you're thinking, whoa, why'd you trade Cam Akers for a single quarterback league? No, they're super flex, just so you guys know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then real quick, how can the listeners get in contact with you?
You guys can find us on pretty much any streaming podcast platform. Just look up Dynasty411. Follow me on Twitter at TheDynasty411, and we have a Facebook group page, Dynasty411. Really simple.
Awesome. Well, guys, we're going to go ahead and move on over into the Packers. And we got Geek Mill saying, make the call, y'all. Yeah, we will. We're getting there real quick there, Geek Mill. It's coming your way. So, want to take the moment real quick. If you guys haven't had the chance to already, hop over to YouTube on the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. Click that subscribe button. Click that little bell on there. We've got a ton of content getting ready to come your way. Obviously, we're doing this show every Tuesday night live, 11 p.m. Eastern. But for those of you that are already subscribed and doing that, you've been noticing some of the trickle coming through where we're releasing some of those player profile videos that we do every year, and just those 3 to 5 minute snippet videos where you get our thoughts on it and some of that in-depth analysis on that, kind of the quick hitters from this show for every one of these players that we go through. So if you're sitting there about to be on the clock, curious where to go, you can watch that thing, get the boys' thoughts on where to go. So make sure that you're subscribed there and getting all that info heading into draft season here. But let's go ahead, and we're going to head to the Green Bay Packers. And they've got some intrigue starting around this team, and we're going to just start where the intrigue does, because everything else is going to roll from there. So kind of a preface on this analysis that we're going to do for all of these players. When we went through and statted these teams out, and we did a lot of that stuff, it was all based on us believing that Aaron Rodgers will be the starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. So there will be a little bit of a caveat on that if he doesn't play, some of these will change up. But let's go ahead, and we're going to head right to the quarterback room. We're going to change things up here. Aaron Rodgers finished QB number 3 last year. 372 completions, 526 attempts, 4,299 yards, 48 touchdowns on 5 interceptions. Also ran the ball a little bit, 38 rush attempts, 149 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Guys, your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers?
You want me to go? I mean, you guys already know. I said that trade earlier with Cam Akers. Aaron Rodgers, I think for 2021 is what we want to talk about, right? I think he's going to be solid as long as he gets in there. I mean, it's still kind of set to be seen. I mean, he said he's going to play in 2021. As we know, it's going to be for Green Bay, and I think with Aaron Rodgers, that's going to help out. Obviously, Davante Adams, because I'm not going to lie, I was nervous about Davante Adams because I don't know what Jordan Love's going to do. But I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be solid. He stays with the Packers. And even if he got traded somewhere else, I still think he'd be solid.
Yeah, so Aaron Rodgers saga, right? And I guess first and foremost, the news that Schefter broke today, I don't really think is new news, right? Like, there had been reports that going into the offseason, the Packers offered Rodgers a deal and he turned it down. And it wasn't really, talked about. It was just, okay, he's serious. He's looking for something else. And now everything kind of resurfaces a little bit right before training camp. So, maybe they sent him another offer and he turned it down a second time. Some of the details aren't yet known. Reports are that it was going to make him the highest paid quarterback in the league, which understandably so based off of his season last year. But the fact of the matter is Aaron Rodgers still has it, right? He showed it last year, 51 total touchdowns. And it really doesn't matter if he's playing for Green Bay or for Philadelphia, for Denver, for Oakland, all these other, Las Vegas, all these teams that he's been connected with. If Aaron Rodgers is on the field, he is a must start, right? Like, he is not a guy that you're messing around with matchups. You just plug him in and you set it and forget it. Being here in Colorado, I'm partial to him coming to the Broncos. I have not given up hope on that train yet. The offensive pieces would be absolutely stunning to see a competent quarterback who can, sling it around the field and what he does. But for this, saying he goes back to Green Bay, I'm not even if he goes, it stays in Green Bay. Sorry, if he stays in Green Bay, I'm not convinced that he even plays the whole season, right? You could see him sit, the first 2, 4, 6 weeks, something like that, just to kind of prove his point. And for whatever reason, the trust and that connection between Aaron Rodgers and the front office or the management team really has been broken. He's really pissed off about the fact that they haven't coordinated with him on any sort of personnel moves. He definitely saw what Tom Brady did going down to Tampa Bay and being able to kind of facilitate and orchestrate getting Gronkowski in there, bringing AB in there, and in return, bringing a Super Bowl down to the Bay Area. So that's what Aaron Rodgers wants. He wants another championship, guys. I mean, he has one. It was early in his career. He's been chasing it ever since. A lot of NFC championship games, but not quite able to get over the hump. And so statistically, he'll be there. If he's playing the whole season, he's going to be a, top 6 quarterback. I expect some of those numbers probably, come down just a little bit. But quite frankly, him and Davante Adams are unstoppable. That is the best quarterback wide receiver connection in the NFL, is Aaron Rodgers to Davante Adams. So if he's playing, must start, and it keeps his skill position players at an elevated ADP for what their true value is coming into your season. If he's not, then that's where we start getting into problems. So we'll get into that as we get into later players. But Rodgers, so we'll call it 43 touchdowns. If he's playing the whole season, we'll call it 45 total touchdowns again. So still extremely solid numbers, just a tick off of his pace last year, and spread out over one more game. So he's an absolute QB1, and if he's on the field, he is in your fantasy lineup, no questions asked.
Absolutely. JB Cho knows chiming in. What's good, friends? Not much, JB Cho's. We are just talking some fantasy football. You know how we do. JB Cho's knows is in a couple of leagues with us, knows his stuff as well. Appreciate you tuning in. Absolutely. So when I think Aaron Rodgers, our consensus ranking that we released a couple weeks ago on QBs had him at QB number 7 overall between the three of us. And when we look at that, Yeah, Kevin, you were the highest on it with you had him ranked at 6. I had him at 7 and Alex at 8 for consensus of number 7 there. So we all see him pretty similar there to it. And I think a lot of that just depends on how you see maybe somebody else finishing the scoring on that. But when I'm thinking Aaron Rodgers, I've got him kind of statted out for just over 4,500 total yards to it, 39 total touchdowns with about 37 of those being through the air and about 2 more on the ground. So I see him having another stellar year and doing what he does well, which is throwing the ball, connecting them, keeping them in games and winning football games. And that's just kind of what you get. It's not necessarily, I don't think he's necessarily going to put up that same MVP season, but he's not going to be far off from it either. So again, kind of more of the same to it. He's a guy that right now is kind of slipping in some of the drafts, just from the standpoint, folks aren't necessarily willing to take that risk early on with that on if he's going to play or if he's not going to play, and they're going other routes to it. And so it's definitely an interesting one to see. But as we get closer to the season and you see probably more definitive news come out on whether or not he's going to play or not play, you'll see that capital shoot through the roof when that thing says he's going to play, and he'll probably be drafted up there right around QB 6 off the board would be where I say he's probably going to be taken. So any other thoughts on Aaron Rodgers?
I guess from like a dynasty standpoint, I haven't had any interest in Aaron Rodgers, even with all like drafting and everything. Still haven't had any interest. The only interest I've had is Jordan Love, but that's obviously for future players. But Aaron Rodgers is a good time to buy right now, just because people are still kind of iffy on him, but it also might be kind of a hot market right now where you might not get. You might have to pay a lot more because these people are like, see, look, he's coming back. So I would hold, but. And I'm still off the Aaron Rodgers train. If there wasn't this Jordan Love contract extension, drama, then I'd be in. But with this drama, I'm out.
Fair enough. And he definitely, after last year, he looks like he still got it. Most quarterbacks, when they start getting to his age, look like, the wheels start falling off there a little bit, but definitely not the case with an Aaron Rodgers. Guys, I don't have a fancy graphic done up for Jordan Love. A couple of reasons. One, when you don't have any gameplay, it's hard to find any good images there. And secondly, there's 0 stats, so it would literally be just him on a screen going, yo guys, what's up? But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Jordan Love, just from the standpoint that we're still not sure what Aaron Rodgers is going to do this year. But if he retires, if he moves on, if he gets traded, whatever that looks like, if he's not in a Packers uniform next year, the presumptive starter then becomes Jordan Love. And what are your thoughts on the Packers under Jordan Love with him being under center?
Go ahead, Kevin. I went first last time.
So I see a lot of pain if Jordan Love is the quarterback, and not necessarily because of Jordan Love, right? But you're going from a Hall of Famer, a very great quarterback, top 10 all time, quite possibly. I know he didn't really have the Super Bowls to stack up with some of these guys, but just his raw ability. Aaron Rodgers is one of a kind, and Jordan Love is going to struggle. He's going to get the reps, right? He's going to be able to, work out with these receivers and tight ends during the offseason, because chances are Rodgers isn't going to show up. So that will help rapport if he is put into that starting position. But, I think there's a drastic downtick in offensive production, right? Your third down percentage is going to go through the toilet. Your turnovers are going to go up. Aaron Rodgers only has about 6 turnovers a season between interceptions and fumbles. Jordan Love, I think you're going to see closer to 15 plus turnovers, especially at the back half of the season once defenses get some tape on him and kind of see what he's going to do. He'll provide a little bit more magic with his legs, more kind of like a younger Aaron Rodgers did, if you will. But you're not going to see the magnificent hold on and roll out, spin back around, know exactly where Davante Adams is, hits him on a 25-yard strike down the field, and hey, the chains are moving, and here we go. Like, that goes out the window. You're not going to see the free plays that Aaron Rodgers does when he changes his cadence and he gets defenses to jump off sides every single week because of how his cadence works. Jordan Love's not going to be able to do that, so you lose some of those free plays. So realistically, if Love plays, I think you're probably looking at something like 24 to 26 touchdowns, probably somewhere in that neighborhood of 12 to 14 interceptions. Quarterback fumbles are kind of hard to, guess. So call it another 2 or 3 added on there, being conservative. But that's a drastic downtick, guys. I mean, that's, 15 to 20 less touchdowns under Jordan Love than you have with Aaron Rodgers. So that's about 7 points a week. And in the NFL, that's a huge total, is 7 points a week when you're talking about your team score, week over week and being in some of these games. The thing that helps them, they play the Detroit Lions twice, they play the Minnesota Vikings twice, and they play the Chicago Bears twice. Like, that division helps them stay in the hunt a little bit more. The Bears with Justin Fields and what they're going to do about their starting quarterback. The Lions are dumpster fire, and the Vikings will become the presumptive favorite in that division with Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook. So it definitely changes the landscape of that team a lot. It takes Davante Adams from probably the best wide.
Oh, we were rolling so good.
What he's going to say is the best wide receiver to probably a mediocre wide receiver 2, with probably a bunch of targets. Well, I would say, though, with Jordan Love, I think the running game would probably pick up a little bit more, as Jordan Love's not going to be looking to throw the ball a whole lot. Although I would say when I was looking at Jordan Love's tape, he was pretty decent. He does have a decent deep throw. But I would say more the running game is going to be where it's going to be at, and not as much with Davante Adams.
No, I think you're probably right there. Unfortunately, when you're talking, fortunately, when you're talking about going from Aaron Rodgers to a Jordan Love, I think Kevin hit it pretty well on the head there, because of the fact that, Jordan Love is such a, he's
I'm
back.
The top man.
He's back. The Wi-Fi stream is blowing the wrong direction up there apparently tonight.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Yes. So significant downfall of Jordan Love at quarterback, and I'm just going to wrap it up so that way I don't get kicked off again.
You were rolling.
You were. It was. I like it. It was a little Kevin spicy take, little bringing the heat. But you're talking about Jordan Love. I don't know that Jordan Love under center really gets probably more than about 33, maybe 3,400 yards under it. You're probably talking somewhere in the neighborhood of mid-20s as far as touchdowns go, mid-teens as far as interceptions go, versus just kind of comparatively, Aaron Rodgers will easily get you probably 1,200 more yards, about 12 more touchdowns, and probably half of the interceptions when it's all said and told. And that offense will look completely different. Not only will Davante Adams be heavily affected, but so will another guy that's been fantasy gold for a couple of years, and that's Aaron Jones, who consistently just kind of finishes as one of those top running backs year over year. But as a guy that you can draft typically later than most of them. But, with Jordan Love back there instead of Aaron Rodgers, you probably see a huge downslide for Aaron Jones as well, just because that offense isn't going to be able to stay on the field, and you're probably not going to be getting those same great targets that he sees coming out of the backfield there. But any other thoughts on Jordan Love?
I don't think so.
Okay. All righty, guys. Well, let's go ahead and we're going to head over to where we normally start, and that's in the running back room. Aaron Jones finished as RB number 5 last year, 201 rushing attempts, 1,104 yards, 9 touchdowns. He had 47 receptions on 63 targets for 355 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air. Guys, your thoughts on Aaron Jones?
I like Aaron Jones. Definitely was trading for him last season, before this last season, I guess. But as far as when it comes to trying to draft him and drafts, depending on where I'm sitting, then I'll take him later in the second. But typically, I've been kind of not really going for Aaron Jones. I've been going more for A.J. Dillon, which I know we're going to get to him a little bit later, but I still believe Aaron Jones is a top 12, top 10 running back. Even with Aaron Jones or Aaron Rodgers, or if it's Jordan Love, either one, I still think he's still going to be a solid guy, because let's not forget, most of the time that he's been a top running back, it's been with only 50 to 60% of the snaps. He hasn't been getting 100% of the snaps, so he's still going to get his no matter what. I still believe in him. Am I going after him? I'd rather go after some other guys, but that's just me for Dynasty. Redraft definitely would be picking up Aaron Jones. He's definitely worth it, but I would get the handcuff with Dillon.
I love Aaron Jones. And Aaron Jones is the one Packer who I think sees the least amount of regression if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back to Green Bay. If he does, top 8 back. You're going to see it. He has a nose for the end zone. Aaron Rodgers does trust him. He's quite frankly the second most reliable target Aaron Rodgers has on that team outside of Davante Adams. He still has that big play ability where he's able to take either a swing pass or a running back type screen. He can still split out wide. And if Jordan Love's quarterback, one thing that we're going to see is his field of vision isn't going to be as far down the field. So you're going to see more dump offs, which in PPR leagues, which most leagues are nowadays, there's not too many standard leagues left. I think that helps Aaron Jones. You might see his reception totals actually continue to tick up under a Jordan Love as opposed to an Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Jones, I'm still on board with. He's been sliding in drafts, so I've been able to comfortably pick him up, at the top to middle of the third round in a lot of these drafts, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Like I am a big running back proponent, and I was looking through, some drafts that I've done between this season, off season, and last season, and I love my teams with Aaron Jones on, because normally he's my third running back. Like I can look at quarterback and take a couple mid-round quarterbacks later, even if it's a super flex. I can go back-to-back picks and do all that. But having that stable of running backs is something that I just love to have. So if I can start out a draft with, a Dalvin Cook or Alvin Kamara or Zeke or Jonathan Taylor, something like that, and then you can turn around and follow it up. And if it's a super flex style, you can typically turn around and follow it up depending on where you're at with someone like a Nick Chubb. I had Derrick Henry in one because he fell so damn late, and I just loved it. And then I picked Jones up in the third. So I like him a lot. He's going to see the volume. He's probably going to see the most consistent volume regardless of who's playing quarterback. So right now, if you're going to draft a Packer with any confidence, Aaron Jones is the guy to do it, because he has the big playability. He works in dynasty, redraft, and best ball leagues because of his home run plays. And he will be used on the field regardless of the quarterback. And I expect his snap share to probably tick up about another 7 or 8%. It was about 54 to 56% last year. I think you're going to see it closer to 60, 61, 62% this year, with A.J. Dillon coming in and spelling him for the rest of it. So that's going to create a really good 1-2 combo. But Aaron Jones is definitely a home run threat and still worth the draft pick in my book.
Yeah. Well, and Geek Mill agrees with you on your analysis there. He's
my man.
He's liking what you're talking about. So, no, I would agree with you. I do think that Aaron Jones is going to be a phenomenal player again this year. And really that's going to be regardless of who's under center. But I think with Aaron Rodgers under center, I think Aaron Jones gets even better. This is a guy that last 2 seasons hasn't finished the season outside of top 5. And not only that, Geek Mill chiming in with what I was really about to say. With he's a volume plus plus reliability. There, he is a very dynamic playmaker that is very, very efficient. And most of the time, when we say that about guys, they don't get the volume in order to be great for fantasy. And he's one of the guys that does do that. So if that's one of those that if you are letting him slide on your draft board because of, you're concerned about Aaron Rodgers not playing, or concerned about what these Packers look like with Jordan Love under center, or any of that kind of stuff, you are missing out on what could be some great fantasy relevance for you. And this is a guy that even probably at his worst, in a bad Packers offense on what I kind of described earlier, if Jordan Love's under the helm, is probably a guy that's still at worst. Like the floor for Aaron Jones is maybe running back 14 on the year. And again, in most cases, that's not your first running back that you're taking. He's going to be your second, or in some cases, like Kevin said, he's found that being his third running back on the team, there's nothing better than a guy you drafted as your third RB and he's finishing running back 14. Like that's just fantasy gold right there. So any other thoughts on Aaron Jones?
No. I think the last thought I have on that is I think there's a clear path for Aaron Jones and his touchdown volume to go back up this season, especially if Rodgers isn't playing. And the reason I say that is a lot of times the Packers over the years have been very content in letting Aaron Rodgers just kind of dictate inside the 20-yard line. If Aaron Rodgers wants to throw it, he's going to throw it. He's going to be looking for Davante Adams. So if he's not in that game, they're probably going to be a little bit more conservative, right? The Packers are going to want to come away with points, especially when they're inside the 25-yard line. So what that means is you're going to see some more rushing type work, whether it's Dillon, which I could see them clearly using Dillon inside the 5, or if it's from kind of that 25-5 work, depending on how the series is playing out. I could see Aaron Jones being able to break a tackle and get in the end zone. And you're going from 9 back up to, what do you have? He had 14 touchdowns 2 seasons ago, I believe, 14 rushing touchdowns, and added like 5 or 6 through the air. I could see him get back to 12 on the ground again. And that helps make up for some of maybe the yards per carry that he wouldn't get because defenses are playing him differently. But those touchdowns make up for a lot of sins when you're not getting, 6.7 yards per clip. If you're back down to 4.8 to 5.2, those touchdowns cover all that up, and you actually probably end up ahead by the time the season's done with.
Yeah, you're not kidding. All right, well, let's go ahead and we'll head on over to A.J. Dillon, who was kind of that third running back on the roster last year, playing behind both Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. But A.J. Dillon, running back 80 was his finish last year. 46 rush attempts, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, had 2 receptions on 2 targets for 21 yards. What are your thoughts on A.J. Dillon?
A.J. Dillon might have the NFL's largest quads. Like, he might have taken that away from Saquon. And kudos to him, man. He's a beast. I think the Packers initially drafted him with the thought that they wouldn't be able to bring Aaron Jones back after signing him in the offseason. So they had hopes for him being their future RB1, and now they have kind of a 1A and 1B type scenario, and what it's going to do is it's going to allow Dillon to keep tread on his tires, right? He's going to get tons of usage. Like I said, about 40% snap share is what I'm thinking. The biggest question that we didn't get to see a whole lot last year is how is he in pass protection? Because Aaron Rodgers is a lot like Tom Brady. If you can't pass protect, he doesn't want you on the field. So that's one way to kind of, get in the doghouse. And the other is if it's Jordan Love, you got to be able to keep him upright. He's going to have enough problems on his own reading the game and playing at an NFL type level that if you can't pass protect, you're going to find yourself back on the bench. So he's a big bodied running back. He's got a good base. Like I started out with the legs and everything. He's built to be able to pick up those blitzing linebackers. It's just a matter of his film study, being able to diagnose blitzes, being able to pick up that man coming through and either chip the backer or defensive end before he goes out. But I do see him as a goal line back. I think that's a key role for him. So you're going to see him as a touchdown vulture in some of these games, right? They'll use Aaron Jones. They'll work it down the field. They get inside the 5. Jones gets spelled. Dillon gets 2 cracks at the end zone and ends up falling in. So I think you could see him end up with, 6 or 7 touchdowns by the time the season's done with. I think somewhere in the neighborhood of about 600 to 650 yards is probably where he's going to end up with or without Aaron Rodgers. I don't know that number really changes. But he's a very good complement to Aaron Jones. I like A.J. Dillon. I like his value in Dynasty. I like his value in redraft. There's a point where you're going for some of these guys, and there's a good chance that A.J. Dillon's going to find some standalone value, much like Jamal Williams did, even if you don't have Aaron Jones. So he's not just a handcuff. He's a guy that you can draft and sit on your bench, right? You're not going to start him every week, but he has some standalone value. So if injuries hit you or bye weeks hit you, whatever that is, you can plug a piece into a Packers offense that generally you want a piece of anyway.
Yeah. To go along with what you were saying about how he might only get 40% of the shares, it's possible you could walk away where there's weeks where he's consistently getting you 10 to 12 points. And sometimes that's helpful, and you need those points because you're struggling because you got so many injuries. But like I was saying before, I'm definitely interested in picking him up. I did a tweet a couple days ago about, where do you get some of these, where to draft, or what players to draft after rounds 12 and on, because it seems like that's kind of like the player dead zone. And A.J. Dillon is one of those guys that I'm interested in getting in those later rounds. I could see him in rounds 12 to 14 is where I'd be picking him up, especially if you got Aaron Jones that you picked up as, your second, third running back. You're going to want to get Dillon in case of that injury, but I like Dillon. I think he's still going to get like that work in there, 40%. Pretty much Kevin hit it. I like Dillon still.
Yeah. And right now, when you look at it, A.J. Dillon's going at running back 34 off the board, which puts him an overall ADP of 89 to it. So, he's getting really close to those kind of double-digit rounds, back there in about round 8, 7, 8, somewhere right in that range. And that's at the point it almost makes it tough for me to go out and draft him with kind of that 7th, 8th pick there. Just because in the 7th and the 8th, if you're playing super flex, that's normally about the time that second QB run is going to happen, and you don't want to miss out on that one. Or there's still very impactful wide receivers out there that can help kind of finish rounding that out, that are going to end up scoring more overall points than A.J. Dillon will. But, when I'm looking at it and the way I kind of have this thing statted out and projected out is that you're going to see A.J. Dillon with roughly around 150 carries. And I think I had him for just a touch bit more on the yardage than Kevin did there with just over 700 yards. I wasn't quite as bullish as you were with the touchdowns, but I've got him right around 4 touchdowns, and he'll get a little bit of work in through the air when he's there too. But he will definitely be a guy that you could draft and you could put into a flex in case of an emergency, or just due to some roster construct issues that you may have there, bye weeks and injuries and that kind of stuff. But he's a guy that's kind of like when we talked about the Saints last week when we were talking about Latavius Murray, where he's a great option to have as like a handcuff, but he's also got some standalone value there as well. So a good piece to have on your fantasy roster. Guys, any other thoughts on Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon in this running back room?
A good solid duo.
All righty. Well, let's go ahead and we're going to head on over to the wide receiver room. They got a good one over there. Davante Adams, who finished wide receiver number 1 overall last year, 115 receptions on 149 targets, 1,374 yards through the air, and 18 touchdowns through the air. Guys, your thoughts on Davante Adams?
Can he do it again? We'll see if he can hit it again with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, we've kind of talked about Davante Adams quite a bit. with him being with Aaron Rodgers coming back, I could see him definitely hitting close to these numbers again. There's not a whole lot that they've added at wide receiver. I like Amari Rodgers, which I know we'll talk about later, but Davante Adams is still a top wide receiver.
Yeah, I love Davante Adams. He has been a guy that has always been at the very top of my wide receiver target list, especially in our home league. He's been a guy I've had on my team a number of different times. I have found ways via trade, via draft, via just sheer stupid luck that I've been able to get Davante Adams on my team for I'd say probably half of his career. I wouldn't claim it's any more than that, but I've definitely rode a lot of the highs with him. The thing about Adams is he missed 2 games last year, guys, and really only played part of that third one. So it shows that he started and played in 14 games out of their 16 in the regular season. Really, it was kind of 13 and a quarter, maybe. And he still finishes wide receiver 1. Like, the connection is for real. And he is, in my book, clearly the best wide receiver in fantasy football as long as Aaron Rodgers is playing. If he's not, I think he's going to fall back. Now, does he still have value and the ability to help your team? Absolutely, because he is that good of a route runner and he will be able to get open and do whatever he can for the team. But I do think his stats take a hit. I think he probably slides, possibly all the way down to like wide receiver 15, 16. If Rodgers isn't playing, I think Jordan Love will force feed him the ball. They will find a way to make that work. But just the organic chemistry that Adams and Rodgers have built over the years, that will be missing, and it'll be visible, especially the first few weeks of the regular season. You won't see Adams with 15 targets. You're probably only going to see him with like 9 targets, and you're going to wonder what the hell are they doing until Jordan Love gets his feet underneath him. So I'm hoping, for this sake, this is the side of me that hopes Aaron Rodgers goes back to Green Bay, because I have a lot of Davante Adams shares. But in all reality, there's a big swing. He's the star player for the Packers that has the most to lose by Aaron Rodgers not being there. So it is a little bit of buyer beware. I wouldn't draft him in the back half of the first round in a single QB league. In a lot of super flex leagues, you've been able to get him at the back end of the third, just because the running back run and the quarterback run is so real. Those first 2 rounds, wide receivers plummet into the 3rd and 4th round. So there's some value there if you're playing in a super flex. But overall, this is why hometown leagues, right? Playing with people coast to coast is one thing, but in your hometown leagues, this is why it's so important to draft so close to the start of the regular season. So that way you can go ahead and have all the information possible before you're doing that. And you can be bragging up on your buddies having all the information. Maybe they're not paying attention. Maybe they already signed off on it, whatever. But right now, drafting today, it is a tough call. I think drafting today, I'm fading Davante Adams more than I'm going after him. I'm looking at other options, whether it's Hopkins if he falls, Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf. Even if I wait a little bit and go Calvin Ridley, like all these guys, I think I'm picking up over Davante Adams right now, because I have enough shares, and now the fade is on, because I'm really getting worried that Rodgers is going to say, I just don't need it this year. Sorry, guys.
Fair enough. And you're I think you're being a little modest there when you were talking about that you find ways to get him in our home league, in the good old boys league, every single year, because I can't recall a time when I looked at the rosters and Davante Adams wasn't on your roster, but just in that league, it's been insane. But no, I would agree with you. And it's Davante Adams. You're right. It's a tough one, because if Aaron Rodgers is playing, right, he is going to be hyper targeted to the point where, there's not many receivers out there that the quarterback is going to get them the ball 10, 12 times on a slow game. in a fast-paced game where they're really targeting him, there's even fewer wide receivers that are going to see a target share of getting up to 15, 16, 17 targets in a game. And Davante Adams is one of the very few folks that'll do that. And part of that is because he's one of the elite wide receivers out there. So, that being said, Aaron Rodgers playing, try and acquire him everywhere that you can. If Aaron Rodgers is not playing, that's one of those that you almost have to start kind of questioning. Does he find that fantasy value like an Allen Robinson type, where because of the talent, it doesn't necessarily matter as much of the quarterback play, and he'll still get up in there into wide receiver 1 territory? That's really going to be kind of the biggest question that I've got going into this season. Is we know what it is with Aaron Rodgers. We know that he's got the ability to finish wide receiver number 1 overall, but the question is that if it's Jordan Love, does he still have the ability? Is he still going to get the opportunity? Is the Packers offense going to be good enough for him to finish in wide receiver 1 territory at all? So that's kind of my thoughts on that one. Let's go ahead and we'll move on over to Allen Lazard, who finished wide receiver 78 last year, 33 receptions, 46 targets, 451 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Your thoughts on Allen Lazard?
Go ahead, Kevin.
So Lazard is a guy that I do tend to target late if I'm not grabbing Davante Adams, just to have a piece of the Packers offense. I think I trust him a little bit more than Valdes-Scantling. He got hurt last year. I believe it was a core muscle injury, right, that kept him out a few different weeks, and he was slow to come back. But Lazard's always good for the big play. And he kind of just sneaks him in every once in a while, right? That hot route, if Rodgers is scrambling and Lazard manages to get 1 or 2 chances each week. And the weeks he comes down with them, he's kind of useful. And the weeks he doesn't, you're wishing you didn't do anything with it. So I definitely look his direction more in a best ball style drafting late than I do a redraft league. Even with when Adams went down for those couple games, you really thought Allen Lazard had the chance to kind of step up and be the guy. And I think I made the mistake of picking him up in a couple different leagues and starting him when Adams was out. And it kind of left a sour taste in my mouth a little bit. But it just there's not a whole lot of people Aaron Rodgers trusts, right? He found Bobby Tonyan last year, which kind of took away from Allen Lazard. Even though Tonyan's playing tight end, he was more of a split tight end out off the line of scrimmage and kind of lining up in the slot on a lot of those plays. But you got to be able to throw it to someone if Davante Adams is covered. And honestly, he's a guy whose fantasy production probably increases a little bit with Jordan Love under quarterback, because he's going to take the easier throw more often than not, especially early on. So I like Lazard late. I'm not necessarily like circling him saying, hey, I have to grab this guy in the 13th round. But when you're drafting that late, you're looking for guys with offensive prowess who has the potential of having big games and stepping in. And that's really what Allen Lazard does for you.
And Geek Meal is saying that this is his favorite wide receiver from the group for value.
Yeah.
I see. I like this guy. We need to have him on too. I can sit here and agree with him for a show. I like him. Bring him on.
MVS, Allen Lazard. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Packers wide receivers. I get the appeal of how easy it seems to acquire them. It seems like you can almost get, Lazard, MVS, these other guys for almost nothing. It's almost like a toss and kind of trade almost. I think they're great, wide receiver 3s, wide receiver 4s, these other Packer wide receivers. They're just more of depth pieces for me. Nothing really I want to go out and make sure I want to draft these guys. It's like, hey, this guy is up. He's the best player available. I would take him. But Allen Lazard, I think he'd still be solid. But like I said, wide receiver 3 or 4 for me.
Yeah, Allen Lazard, left a Sammy Watkins type of taste in my mouth after last year when, Kevin, you were talking about the fact that, he was a guy from a waiver wire perspective, from all of that, was a guy to go out and target when Davante was going to be down for those couple of weeks. And really you saw him step up in one game and then not so much the rest of the season, right? He had a one week where he finished as a wide receiver 1 week where he finished as a wide receiver 2. And then the majority of the rest of those, he was, wide receiver 44 or worse. So you're not a guy that necessarily you're super excited to go out and target and get, but he's a guy that is falling drastically in a lot of drafts to the point where he's the 192nd positional pick off the board and wide receiver 69 overall off the board. So there's certainly value to be had with an Allen Lazard. You just need to make sure that you're going into it with the proper expectations. And if you're drafting him down there at wide receiver 69, that's a guy that you're taking a dart throw on in the double digit rounds that, why not type of thing, because that's a guy that, you'll know how he's going to be utilized this year in the first couple of weeks. So if it comes out and he looks like it's going to be great, well, you hang on to him. And if it looks like it's going to be kind of more the same of what you got this past year, well, you're able to cut him and move on and target some other things on the waiver wire. So definitely a value in drafts and easily to acquire there, because most of the time he'll go undrafted in a lot of leagues. Let's go ahead and head on over to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who finished wide receiver 52 last year, 33 receptions on 63 targets, 690 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Your thoughts on Marquez Valdes-Scantling?
So this is the Packers receiver that I'm out on. Like there's been a lot of hype around this guy since the day the Packers drafted him, and for whatever reason, he could never get on the same page with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what's missing there. If it's Rodgers doesn't feel like he understands the route concepts the right way, or if he's not breaking off routes when he needs to, and that's causing frustration from Rodgers. But overall, he's the guy that I'm fading at that point. Like there's too many other players in that area that I can take a flyer on, right? Like I love the Colts receivers this year, so I can take a flyer on Paris Campbell. And, I can take Paris Campbell. I can take T.Y. Hilton. I can, grab some different things like that and be just as happy, if not more so, on a team that I know will spread it around a bit more than the Packers tend to. Yeah. And with this offense, you end up leaving someone out. Like it's just kind of how Rodgers runs that offense. And for me, I'm choosing to leave MVS out of the guys that I'm searching after it all.
I'd have to say you hit it there, Kevin. It's like I said, these Packers wide receivers besides Davante Adams, and then Amari Rodgers, I'm not really interested in these guys. I'd much rather get better value wide receiver from another team than to get these guys. But for best ball redraft, they're decent, but nothing I'm going for.
See, that's the thing for me. I actually like MVS for a best ball strategy, because when you look at it, he's the guy that's going to either, catch a bomb over the middle and break off and can be a one touch, one play kind of guy, to the point where, that's the type of thing that you shoot for in a best ball format. And with where he's being drafted, which is 259th off the board, wide receiver 87, like that's a dart throw that you take in the last round of a best ball format. And if you did that last year, just playing best ball with him, you would have been very happy on 5 weeks and a very usable type of deal for 5 weeks of the season, which is a guy that you would have picked up in, most best ball formats run 16 to 18 rounds type of thing, if not even a little bit deeper. So if you're taking a guy in the 18th round and he's giving you 5 usable weeks in a best ball, like why not? That's kind of where I'm at on him. But for dynasty purposes, nope, I'm out on him. For redraft purposes, nope, I'm out on that one as well, because it's going to be redraft is going to be way too tough to try and figure out what's the week that he's going to catch that, 70-yard bomb and take one to the house. It's just too tough to try and figure out which week is going to be that week. But for a best ball format, absolutely love Marquez Valdes-Scantling for that, especially with where he's going in drafts. So, guys, any other thoughts on MVS? They've got a couple of other wide receivers in this room, right? You got Equimonious St. Brown. You've got Amari Rodgers. Any thoughts on those two guys?
I'm digging Amari Rodgers. Definitely get him in the third round, fourth round rookie drafts, later rounds in your dynasty startups. But I honestly believe Amari Rodgers could easily be the next Davante Adams there for the Packers at some point. Just watching his tape, the way he breaks off from the ball, he's definitely a great sleeper rookie wide receiver if you can't get these other top rookie wide receivers, especially with Aaron Rodgers saying he's coming back.
Yeah, I think Rodgers does hold some value, right? He's the guy that they drafted to come in there. St. Brown had some quiet hype around him last year, right? Until he got hurt and then he ended up missing the season. Like, he was kind of the dark horse last year that I thought was going to kind of step up into that wide receiver 2 role for the Packers. Aaron Rodgers seemed to like St. Brown. Who knows what's going to happen this offseason? If Rodgers isn't participating, then who knows what Jordan Love is going to end up liking. So generally, that's the rookies, right? They lean on each other. They're growing together. They come into the league together. So Jordan Love isn't a rookie. I understand that. But for all intents and purposes, it's going to be their first real NFL action together. So I could see those two coming up with some sort of chemistry and him being a security blanket, because most likely they're going to play him out of the slot to at least start the season and then kind of see what goes on from there. And I think you're right. I think grabbing him in the third round of a dynasty rookie draft leads to a lot of exciting possibilities, right? A lot of these guys are dart throws at this point anyway. But with where the Packers finally decided to give Aaron Rodgers some real help in the receiving game, he's going to get some run because the team's going to want to desperately prove that they were right and they didn't need Rodgers' help all along. So he's going to get every chance in the world to be relevant before they cash it in and say, nah, we were wrong.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, guys, let's I'm not sure what this. All right. So Ryvie is on the clock, it looks like. So any tips on who I should pick? 10-team league, standard scoring, redraft. He's picked 10 with a bunch of RB hogs. All the stud RBs will be gone. If I wait on RB, he's probably starting Monty if he's lucky. And then with that, he's got picks 10 and 11. So he's got the 110 and the 201, it sounds like. So, guys, what advice would you give Ryvie there?
10 team. Go ahead, Kevin. I'm going to get some info here.
I think so. So there you're looking. Honestly, I don't know that Montgomery's worth a first or second round pick. Like where he's going, his ADP and everything else. Like there's a chance that Nick Chubb kind of falls to you. There's one of the guys who typically is going to be back there is Austin Eckler. I'm really high on Eckler this year because the Saints running back coach, I believe it was, is now the offensive coordinator with the Chargers. So that philosophy that got built into Alvin Kamara and all these routes out of the backfield and all this usage in the passing game is now going to LA for the Chargers. So if you're looking for a running back that you can typically get in the second round, but if you just want to lock him up, Austin Eckler is a guy that I think is going to finish inside the top 8 by the time the season is done and over with. So if you're able to pick him up as the, even if it goes all running backs, if you're picking him up as the 10th or 11th running back off the board in a standard, oh my gracious.
Yep, he did say it was.
I
say it was standard scoring.
You still have the touchdowns, which will help. So let's punt here for a second. So if Eckler's not there, Aaron Jones is a guy that you could still grab, right? Like we talked about Aaron Jones earlier. He's kind of falling down draft boards. Jones is a guy that you could still grab. And I think Antonio Gibson is a real deal
Yeah.
that you could probably
Yep.
grab there. And it might be a bit of a reach, but he's not going to come back to you in the third round. So Antonio Gibson is another guy that we have high hopes for, along with CEH. If you want a piece of the Chiefs offense and you don't feel like paying for Kelsey or Tyreek, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is another piece. So those are three guys that you can kind of target that'll be there at the back end of your first, beginning of your second round.
So, and Rivey saying that Jones will possibly be there if he doesn't go at 9. Well, yes, there's always a chance that one of these guys goes before that. But if they go before that, you're going to see, these guys kind of fall down to it. So right now I've got it's half point, Rivey, is what I've got ADP pulled for. So it'll be a little bit different, but it's going to be pretty close. So right now, if you're looking at the board and you're talking just running backs, Eckler in a half points, number 10. You've got Gibson that's going to be number 11 off the board. Joe Mixon, running back 13. Jacob Dobbins, 14. Josh Jacobs, 15. DeAndre Swift, 16. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is down there right now at running back 18. So there's going to be a bunch of options out there for you with that. I'm much higher than I know Kevin is on Joe Mixon. That would be one that I would look at targeting there. You may, with it being a standard scoring, Nick Chubb most likely won't fall to you, but he's a guy that goes kind of that back half of most drafts. Eckler is a guy that I would still take the moonshot on there, simply from the standpoint that he will still produce. And I think that the Chargers will give him probably a little bit more rushing room than you've seen in the past. And so, looking at it, I've got Eckler over 230 carries. He's going to break 1,000 yards, 1,000 yards on the ground. And I see him putting up roughly right around 600 yards through the air. So even in a standard format, I think Austin Eckler will still be good. And you're thinking of Gibson and Hill, but you're worried about the toe. I get that there's a lot of things out there where you're talking, folks are, slightly worried about the toe and maybe that creeping up there a little bit, but Antonio Gibson is an otherworldly talent as far as I'm concerned. And when you look at how they have used him and the coaching staff around him, it's the same coaching staff that ran CMC all day long. And so when you're talking that, they've even come out and said that they see a lot of the similar characteristics with him being able to catch the ball out of the backfield. And Antonio Gibson was a beast running through there and was highly efficient. And I think he's going to get more run than what he got last year even. But Eckler and Hill are certainly not a bad play. If you're talking Tyreek Hill, though, on what you've laid out for us, I'd probably go running back, but that's just me.
Let's not forget about James Robinson as well. I'm not sure if there's rookies in this draft as well or not, but James Robinson would be a pretty solid running back you can get, 4 or 5 rounds right there if you're wanting to go towards a wide receiver. I mean, James Robinson, I believe, and even Jared and Jason, the other co-hosts of mine with the 4-1, we all believe that James Robinson still can do is going to still do work. Because the Jaguars, they drafted ETN thinking Kadarius Toney was going to be there. They wanted a wide receiver. They wanted somebody else that's going to receive the ball, and they just did what college teams, do. They just draft. They just get the best guy. So I still believe in James Robinson if you need to go a little bit later.
Yeah. There's a lot of running backs falling down in that 4th, 5th round right now, 6th round in some cases, that have a lot of value. Myles Gaskin's a guy down there. Kareem Hunt's a guy down there that would still get you some value, even in a standard format there. But lots of good things there. And I think that's what we all kind of laid out there. Guys, any other thoughts for Rivey?
Make that call.
Make that call. All righty. No, Rivey, I would not go running back 0. Like I said, if it's me drafting, I'm taking running back. If it's the room that you've described where you've got running back hogs on it, I'm taking RB, which is typically the way I draft anyway.
Although I do want to throw this little stat out there that I had noticed that after running backs, I think it was like either running backs 1 through 3 or running backs 1 through 5, you get kind of a drop off in the points when you get like the top 10 wide receivers would fit in underneath the top 3 running backs, and you'd get back, wide receivers then back into running backs. So if you got some of those top wide receivers there at that spot, take the best wide receiver there. If Tyreek Hill or some of these other guys, you can attack these other positions while these other guys are going one direction. Sometimes I like to do that in the draft.
So, yep, definitely kind of a split room, it sounds like. I know me, I'm going running back. Sounds like Robert would go running back, potentially wide receiver. And just knowing and based on drafting with Kevin enough, he's going to go running back most likely. So, cool. All righty, guys, let's go ahead and head on over to the tight end room and finish off some Green Bay Packer analysis. Robert Tonyan was tight end number 3, 52 receptions, 59 targets, 586 yards, and 11 touchdowns. Guys, your thoughts on Bobby Tonyan?
This guy was falling back to earth, whether Rodgers is coming back or not. The efficiencies, right? 56 of 59, 11 touchdowns. Like, this guy was in the right place at the right time all season long.
Cinderella,
and he was able to make the most of it. He is falling back down to earth. He is a guy that I'm actively avoiding in all types of different drafts. I'm a big proponent of waiting on tight end unless there's such a premium that I have to pay attention to it. Other than that, I can sit back and wait. I can wait and go Gerald Everett. I think he's a guy who's not getting enough run out there in Seattle. I can, pick up a Tyler Higbee. The Rams offense is going to change now that Cam Akers is down. So I can see Higbee more involved in the passing game as the Rams try and generate offense with Matt Stafford. Blake Jarwin, Adam Troutman, if you're waiting late and you want to take a flyer on tight ends. So it's not against Bobby Tonyan. He did absolutely everything possible and had a Cinderella home run year last year, but don't expect it to repeat. Like, don't draft him in the top 10 of tight ends. Like, the chances of him finishing in the top 10 this season are actually like astronomically small because of what his efficiency ratings were in 2020. And I don't see that happening. So for that case, I'm out unless he just falls so stinking far because I happen to be drafting in a room with, 11 other guys that think exactly like I do, which never happens. So most times he's not going to be on my roster. I'm going to be looking in other places, probably picking up another wide receiver, like a third wide receiver in those rounds where Tonyan's typically coming off the board.
Yeah, I have no interest in Robert Tonyan. You said it.
So I was one of the fortunate souls that managed to play the tight end position almost perfectly when it came from a streaming perspective, right? I drafted in our home league. I drafted Jonnu Smith. I think that was in the 14th or 15th round, and I was sitting right next to Kevin when I did that, and I go, well, I'm hoping that this one pans out the way I think it did, and it did for the first part of the season while AJ Brown was out. But you saw him return to earth once the return of AJB happened, and then managed to pivot right to Robert Tonyan right at the right time. So, I ended up riding a top 3, top 4 tight end during those entire weeks there. But that story and that anecdote just kind of goes to prove that this position is one that you can wait on, and you can take people late and you can stream the position and all of that. So much so to the point I've managed to do that 2 years in a row, having Darren Waller in the 2019, picking him up super late, and then doing the Jonnu to Robert Tonyan type of move there. And because of that, Robert Tonyan is a guy that's not going to be on my roster for a lot of the same thing you guys just said, where he's not going to be available to me in the 12th, 13th, 14th round, where I'm going to look at starting to try and get my first tight end to put on my squad. I'm going to be taking some of those guys like Kevin already mentioned. Gerald Everett's going to be a guy that I think is going to ball out in Seattle. Adam Troutman, I've got incredibly high this year. Same thing with Blake Jarwin. I think had he been healthy, he would have been a guy that we were touting as, right now, saying that was the late guy that broke out, and we saw that come to play. So I think that's how that'll kind of work and shake out there. But guys, any final thoughts on either the Packers tight end room or the Packers in general?
Definitely kind of a sketchy team to be wanting to draft from. I know there's some great players on there, but makes me a little bit nervous. If I would have to rank the order of their top guys I'd have interest in, it would be Aaron Jones, Davante Adams, then it'd be Aaron Rodgers, AJ Dillon, and then the rest kind of just jumble all together. But that would be how I'd want them.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. If Rodgers is playing, there's fantasy pieces that make the team relevant. If Rodgers isn't playing, you better be getting the right type of value for these guys. Mm-hmm. With my exception of Aaron Jones, like I said, I expect him to produce regardless. Outside of him, you better be getting the right type of value. Don't be reaching for players if you find out Rodgers isn't coming back to Green Bay. Like, don't look for lightning to strike in this bottle, guys. It's probably not going to happen.
Right. Absolutely. Well, guys, there was some news happening early today where it shook up our next segment, and we're going to be talking about the running backs in general. Like we said, this is our consensus running back list, and we're still going through and reworking some of those statting out things. So this may change a little bit yet over the next couple of weeks as we kind of see what what the Rams are really going to do off of this news. But right now, we'll just kind of break down the top 8. And then, so Robert, what we're looking for here is we're going to kind of go through our list here, and we're going to get your takes on who you think we may have a little too high, maybe somebody we've got too low, all of this being on a redraft purpose. And we statted these guys out and projected them out for half-point PPR scoring. So number 1, we've got Christian McCaffrey. Number 2 was Dalvin Cook. Number 3, Alvin Kamara. Number 4, Ezekiel Elliott. Number 5, the King, Derrick Henry. Number 6, Jonathan Taylor. Number 7, Saquon Barkley. And number 8, Austin Eckler. So kind of going through that first 8, what are your thoughts?
I think for the most part, they're looking pretty good. The only concern that I would have is Barkley, just because he says he's still not sure if he's going to be ready week 1. That could just be him just blowing smoke out there, but I highly doubt that. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a slower start. He's going to want to ease his way back into from his injury. But I would say after the first month, he should be starting back up again. I think your guys' top 8 looks pretty solid to me. Kamara would be another person I think that I'd be only a little bit nervous about, depending on who's going to be at quarterback there for the Saints. We still don't know what type of offense, who's going to be running it yet. But other than that, solid. Gotcha.
Well, I appreciate that. And guys, anybody that's concerned about the Saints, we did that episode last week. You can certainly check that one out on the YouTube channel. And I think we were pretty vocal about our thoughts on Alvin Kamara and that quarterback situation. Let's go ahead and move on over to number 9 through 16. And we've got Nick Chubb at number 9, Antonio Gibson at number 10. Number 11's Aaron Jones. Number 12, Joe Mixon. Number 13, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. 14 was DeAndre Swift. Number 15 was Najee Harris. And number 16 was Chris Carson. What are your thoughts here?
Man, you guys, Kevin, how are you allowing Jones to be at 11? I mean, you were just hyping him up.
There's 3 of us, man.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. Swift, I think, would be the only one that I'd be nervous about having inside the top 16, just because they did bring in Jamal Williams. And Jamal Williams, I mean, his specialty there for the Packers was pass catching. Why would you bring in another pass-catching type back when you have Swift? So I feel like that's going to be more of like an RBC. So I think Swift could still be in the top 20, but maybe not the top 16. Maybe closer to 20 for me.
Absolutely. So was there anything, any guys not on this list that you would potentially move up?
that are not on this list. Let me double check. I know if I don't say it, my co-host will be upset with me, but David Montgomery. How is David Montgomery not at least in the top 16? I feel like the volume of work that he's going to get there with the Bears and only having Allen Robinson, they don't really have anybody else to throw the ball to. There's hype around Cole Clement, but even with Justin Fields, I still think David Montgomery's still going to get a decent amount of work. Probably a lot more than I think Chris Carson would be. I think if we had to swap a player out, it'd be David Montgomery for Carson or David Montgomery for Swift for me.
Fair enough. I was the most bullish of the three of us on David Montgomery and also on Chris Carson. I actually had those two back to back at 16 and 17 there. But I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I believe more in Seattle's offense, and they're going to be on the field longer, and you're going to see just overall more opportunities with them, being on the field longer and running the ball more. Then you'll see some of the Bears, because I think you'll see those some quick and outs coming out of Chicago next year.
Who's at quarterback?
I think it doesn't matter who's at quarterback. They're going to have some quick and outs throughout that. One, because Andy Dalton does that, and two, Justin Fields will still be adapting to the speed of the game there a little bit. So I think while you will see David Montgomery get a lot more work on the ground, it's also one of those that you're going to see Tyreek Cohen come back, and you're going to see some of these guys where they'll mix in some of the passing work that Montgomery won't get this year. So cool.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi winds were blowing the wrong way again, it looked like. Well, any other thoughts on the list here?
No. Yeah. I don't think so. I think it's pretty good. I think.
All right.
Yeah, they're good.
All righty. And Kevin, did you have anybody that you wanted to put your stamp on and climb that molehill to proclaim that we either had too high or too low?
We had too high or too low. I think Aaron Jones could easily finish inside the top 10. I know we have him just outside at 11. And I guess when I was looking at this, the difference between Barkley and Mixon is like minuscule. Like it's I don't have big spreads. We're talking like 5 points over the course of the season. I know we talked about this briefly last week on our show, that you kind of have McCaffrey, and then you kind of have in Cook, Kamara, Elliott, Henry, and then you kind of have this next group, right? It's all the tiers. It's just how you break them out in tiers. So I don't know if there's anybody necessarily on a molehill that I'm willing to kind of die on. I like where Austin Eckler's sitting on here. So that would typically be a guy with a lot of rankings that I think is going to climb higher, but we have him inside the top 10. So I like that a lot. Edwards-Helaire, I like him at 13 a lot too, just because he's another guy you can typically get as your third running back, because people were so scorned by drafting him inside the top 10 overall last year that he is kind of plummeting down. And I like that piece. It's the cheapest piece of the Chiefs offense that you can get. So
it's going to be serviceable week in and week out. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And so I like having that piece a lot. I think he's going to be very useful. DeAndre Swift is my boy. Like, I'm sitting here wearing my Georgia hat, and DeAndre Swift is my boy, but this Lions team scares the crap out of me. Like, he's probably a guy that I'm probably fading more than I want to, just because I don't trust anything else around him. I don't love Jared Goff. I don't love their receiving weapons outside of TJ Hawkinson. And they brought in, Jamal Williams for God knows what reason to be pissing around with DeAndre Swift and the eternal one in Adrian Peterson. So he's the one that's definitely the biggest question mark to me. I think Carson could honestly finish higher on this list as long as he holds onto the ball. His biggest issue has been the fumbles. But if he holds on to it, the Seahawks seem to be seem to want to be more balanced. And if that's going to be the case, I can't trust Rashard Penny to stay healthy. So I could see Carson going higher, Swift dropping lower. But overall, I like the list. That's why I helped make it.
There you go. And the one that the one for me that was moved up there a little bit was Saquon Barkley. He was a guy that before the Cam Akers news that came out today, I had Saquon as my 13th ranked running back, just outside the top 12, outside of running back 1 territory, which a lot of folks would disagree with on that one, but statting it out, that's kind of how I had it rolling with the news. He moved up inside the top 12 into running back 1, but that was kind of my one that is the little one I'm a little leery on inside of that first 12 there. So, well, guys, I do believe that that's going to take us down to about the end of it. Any final thoughts for the listeners?
I just want to say thank you guys for having me on and giving me an opportunity to be able to share my thoughts with you guys. It was a blast.
Absolutely, Robert. We enjoyed it. Good conversation there. If you can make sure that the listeners know where to connect with you.
You guys can follow us on any podcast that you guys, or any platform that you guys listen to. Dynasty411. You can follow me on Twitter at TheDynasty411. Do a lot of posting on there, and we have a Facebook group, Dynasty411.
Awesome.
Make that call.
And Kevin and I will certainly be seeing you in some of the leagues that we're in with you on. And I know both Kevin and I are looking very forward to taking home some trophies in those leagues. So it'll be a dogfight, I'm sure, and it'll be a lot of fun when it's all said and done. Kevin, any final thoughts for the listeners?
No, we're getting close. Camp's starting for the Steelers and Cowboys here. I believe on Wednesday. They reported today. So as they kind of get through some of this, but I think next week officially camp opens up for the rest of these NFL teams. So news and notes should be flowing here relatively quickly. So make sure you stay tuned for the latest and greatest. We're going to help you out best we can. And as always, the goal is to get that cash and trophies. So we're here to help you do it.
Absolutely. And guys, we're gonna start going to 3 episodes as we get close to the season, right? We're gonna keep the Tuesday one. We're gonna start doing the Friday one, breaking down some games over the weekend, and then we're gonna do kind of a ask us questions like Ryvie did, start sit type of things Sunday morning before the games kick off. So if you have not done so, make sure that you head over to YouTube, the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button. Ring that little bell so you're getting all those notifications. It really helps us out, and we definitely appreciate it. But, guys, I do think that that's going to wrap up yet another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Make sure you're hitting us up on our socials, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, Facebook, at Good Old Boys FF. We've got the website for your pleasure, thegoodoldboysff.com. Robert was our guest tonight. Make sure you hit up his socials there. But for Kevin, I'm Derek. Alex will be back shortly. Have a good one. Be safe.
See you later, guys.